Secretary Becerra, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours for 2 minutes of opening remarks. Gracias.
Pilar, to everyone, thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity and success to you. We need you. We need to have those voices of communication, the network that gets out to our communities that often don't have access to all sources of media, who don't often get approached by general or mainstream media. So thank you for everything you do to reach families and people who need information as much as anyone else. Uh, I am thrilled to be here. I mean thrilled to be here with you, but also thrilled to be here on this day, just days away from the election, where we stand in the race. And I look forward to being able to talk to you more in the future, not just as candidate for Governor Becerra, but as Governor Becerra in the future. I believe California is hungry for a governor who can reignite a sense of a possibility. That's why this campaign has always been about one conviction, that working hard should be enough to help you build something that lasts. Whether it is the work that I did to help cap the price of medicines like insulin to $35, or to negotiate better drug prices for Medicare for the first time in history, or whether it's covering more than 24 million Americans with health care through the Obamacare program. I knew how to deliver those results for people who wanted to see that there was more than just a possibility, but that we could ignite that possibility to make it a reality. That's why I'm running, because families in California want to see a reality. And right now, the momentum in this campaign is real. We are leading in the polls. Uh, we are collecting money. Average donation coming in from people from across the state is about $59. It's not a billionaire writing himself a check. It's people like teachers and nurses and union workers who are supporting this campaign and helping us fuel us to victory. And so I am thrilled that we have the backing of working families. We have the support of firefighters, Planned Parenthood, nurses. That's who's backing this campaign. That's why I think we will win, because we need to win. Because right now we see the attacks coming from Washington, D.C., whether it's Donald Trump or the craziness of tariff policy, starting wars, reckless wars, foreign wars in places like Iran. We need to have someone who can manage the affairs of California and protect it against the menaces all over the place. And I will say one last thing. When we win this election, it will be because we worked hard and we earned it. And we have ignited a sense of possibility in the families and the voters of California.
A question on immigration. How should California respond if there are renewed federal immigration crackdowns? What tools do you plan to use? And do you currently believe that ICE's excesses can be stopped?
Well, I certainly will make sure that I use all the tools that I had in my disposal when I was Attorney General, the first time Donald Trump was president. I will certainly work closely with Attorney General Rob Bonta to protect the interests of our families, immigrant families. And I'll make sure that we don't let Donald Trump get away with illegal conduct, like what we see with his ICE mercenary force, which is violating the laws of U.S. citizens and residents alike throughout the state of California and throughout the country. We'll stand up as we have in the past. And I'll do it not just because I've done it as Attorney General, but because I know what it feels like as a son of immigrants when your rights are not respected, when you're threatened, and when it's difficult for you, as hard as you're working, to believe that your government is there for you. And so we'll make sure that we keep ICE to task, that ICE, while it's a federal agency, still must obey the Constitution. It still must respect state laws when it goes beyond its jurisdiction. And so we'll make sure that whether it's on the issue of immigration enforcement, or whether it's the issue of access to services in the state of California, our immigrant families know that they are protected.
I have a question that was sent to us by Chico Sol News. If this is true, you can say it. Why did you back away from supporting a single-payer healthcare system? And what will you do specifically to help rural communities living in designated primary health professional shortage areas?
I never backed away. So that's an accurate representation of where I have been. It's a distortion that some of my opponents have been peddling for some time, but I've been consistent throughout my career in public service. Back in 1993, I was a co-sponsor, a principal co-sponsor of legislation called Medicare for All. Medicare is a form of single payer. And since that time in the early 1990s to today, I've been consistent. I believe the most efficient way to deliver care is to remove as many of the middlemen and the unnecessary moving parts in the healthcare system that eat up a lot of money. And I have always advocated to make sure we have an efficient system of healthcare. And while we try to get there, because it's been difficult in those 3+ decades to get there, we have to continue making progress towards one of the principal goals of Medicare for All, and that is to make sure everyone has access to healthcare that they need. And so I've worked over the years when I helped draft and pass the Affordable Care Act, when I defended it in the Supreme Court as Attorney General. And as Secretary, I built the Affordable Care Act to the most successful program it's been, getting coverage over 24.5 million people through the private marketplaces and helping expand out the Medicaid program. So everywhere I've gone, I've increased access to care to get us closer to universal coverage. And I've been consistent. I want to make sure we have the most efficient system possible. And so the lies that are out there about my record are just that, they're lies. I've been consistent all of my public life.
If elected the governor, something that appears likely considering the current polls and the democratic nature of California's electorate, what would be your first executive order immediately after being sworn in? Thank you.
Nestor, I have said that upon taking office, I will declare a state of urgent or emergency in the state when it comes to housing. And I will move to try to put in practice actions that will let us begin building more housing as quickly as possible. There are currently about 40,000 housing units that are shovel ready. They're ready to be built. They just lack the financing that's necessary so that they can start the construction. And so I will immediately work with the legislature to see if we can find the resources that would let us have those projects move forward with shovel and ground, so we can give Californians a true sense, faith that we will actually build the housing units that we need. I've also said that during that state of housing emergency, that I would also seek to freeze utility rates and home insurance, casualty insurance premiums, because I do believe that most families in California cannot make sense of the spiraling prices of utilities and home insurance premiums and are entitled to know what they're paying for, or in many cases, why they're losing their policies without sufficient notice. And so I think there are certain things that we can take action on very quickly that will help the public get a better understanding of how we're going to start to reduce the price of so many things in California.
Mr. Steyer was with us yesterday, and he criticized you by saying that you have received corporations' money, or that some independent expenditure committees, I understand this is what's happening, are receiving money from certain corporate interests in supporting your candidates. How do you respond to voters that worry that large corporate interests may have an outsized influence in California politics, and how would you demonstrate independence as a governor?
Well, I am totally independent of them because I have no no relationship to those independent committees. I have no knowledge of what those independent committees are doing. I have no coordination with them. And so, again, you have a candidate who is distorting truth. I have nothing to do with independent committees. And I stand by what I have done. My record speaks for itself. And so whether it is on issues of the environment or taking on the fossil fuel industry, you just look at my record. When I was Attorney General, I sued the fossil fuel industry. I went after the Trump administration when they tried to undo some of our environmental protections. I was the Attorney General who stood up, protected the clean car standards that allow California to have clean burning engines in California in the cars that we buy. I was the one that protected the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act. And so it is easy for a billionaire to distort the truth about another candidate. What he cannot distort is the truth of his own record. Tom Steyer made billions by investing in coal, in oil, and it is very difficult to listen to a person who made millions, if not billions of dollars from the very industries he's now criticizing, never returning those profits, and now using them to fund his campaign to the tune of more than $200 million. More money has been spent by Tom Steyer to run for office using those profits he made from those industries than any candidate in the history of California politics running for governor. So it's very rich, to say the least, no pun intended, to hear Tom Steyer criticize me for money I have nothing to do with, while he's using his profits from those very industries to run his campaign and spend more money than any candidate in the history of California politics has ever spent.
According to the California Arts Council, California's per capita arts funding is about 80 cents, ranking 35th overall, but states like Florida, it's $2 per capita. Does this discrepancy mean anything to you, and how would you possibly work to fill that gap?
Manny, I'm not seeing those statistics, so I can't comment on them directly. But what I will tell you is this, that uh, one of the things that lets our children grow and be successful and be tremendous assets to our country is when we let their brains flourish. And the way you can do that most is to expand their mind at the earliest stages of life. The way you can do that, arts, entertainment, music, sciences. And so I believe we have to restore the investments in our arts and culture, and the music programs, the science programs that let our kids explore well beyond just the three R's. And so I know that from my daughters. My wife and I made every effort to make sure that our kids were very seeped in music. We let them play sports where they wanted, but mostly what we did was we committed to ensure that they were seeped in music. And then from there, once they went off to college, they decide what they wanted to do. But I am absolutely fully invested as future governor to make sure that our children have an opportunity to expand their mind, and especially for children who come from disadvantaged families where it's tough for those families to otherwise make those types of resources available to their kids.
Eugene Levin, it's Panorama Media Group, Russian media group, a Russian language media group, and we're forbidden in Russia by Putin's regime. My question is, if you elected while the opposing party controlled the Washington administration, how will you protect California funding for infrastructure, healthcare, and disaster relief while navigating policy disputes? And with Democratic majority, how will you specifically build coalition with Republican states legislator to pass some states' budget and address issues like housing and crime?
Thank you for the question, because it's really important. And Eugene, we will fight where we must to stand up for the rights of California. We will not take a knee to anyone. We will fight for our rights. We will fight for our resources. Remember that California taxpayers send more money to the federal treasury than any other state in the nation. And we deserve to get our fair share of those resources back to work in California. So we will fight for that. At the same time, we will partner with the largest partner that the state of California has, and that's the federal government. Where we can, we will have a partnership. Where we must, we will stand up and fight. I can say that to you, not just as a promise, I can say that to you because that's what I delivered when I was Attorney General. When I was Attorney General, the Trump administration tried to force us to do what they're doing already, which is force our law enforcement to join with ICE in doing immigration raids. And we stood up. I said we would not. They sued us. We beat them in court. And when we beat them in court, Donald Trump decided to take away $57 million in resources from our law enforcement agencies because they would not participate. We took them on in court and we got our $57 million back. So we will partner with them where we must, but we will fight when it's necessary. And we can have a relationship with the federal government as we must, but we will not take a knee.
Hi, this is Nigdar from India Current. Sorry about that. My unmute button wasn't working. Mr. Becerra, my question to you is that the Trump administration on Friday released a policy memo for green card applicants, making it harder for those seeking an adjustment of status to remain in the country for the duration of the process. This is expected to affect employees and families alike. What is your position on this memo?
Absolutely against it. Absolutely against it. When I was in Congress, I moved to try to make the process easier and smoother because you're disrupting families. These are people who are on the verge of getting a green card. These are not the criminals. These are not the people that Donald Trump always talks about trying to go after. These are people who are qualifying to be here, which means they have to have a good record. It just once again proves that Donald Trump never intended to go after only the criminals and the people who were doing harm in California. He's just after anyone who's an immigrant, anyone who doesn't look like him. And that's unfortunate because, as we know, those immigrant families, those immigrants who are here, many of them with green cards, are some of the most successful Americans in the country. And they have created millions of jobs. They have created prosperity for so many parts of our state. They are revitalizing communities that were dying beforehand. And so what he's doing is typical Donald Trump. It is something we have learned to have to reckon with, and we will. And we will. We will fight it every step of the way because no family should have their livelihood and their family relationships disrupted simply because a guy doesn't like who you are. It's not the way you do business. It's un-American, and we will fight it. And I guarantee you, more often than not, we will beat Donald Trump in that game.
I would like to know what if you are considering or about giving the undocumented immigrant the chance to have against medical, because that was canceled by Governor Newsom, and that put us, all of us, in a very hard situation. What are your thoughts about that? Thank you.
Yes, Araceli, thank you for the question. Very important. And I applaud Governor Newsom for the actions he took because everyone who works hard in California should have access to the healthcare that they need. And I will make sure that when I'm governor, that will be the driving force of my healthcare policy. If you work hard in California, makes no difference to me where you come from, how long you've been here. If you're working hard, you deserve to have access to the healthcare that you need. And that means that we will protect those who have healthcare through the Medi-Cal program. Even though Donald Trump cut $1 trillion from the Medicaid program, which is what we call Medi-Cal here in California, we're not going backwards. We're not, as I said, we're not going to take a knee to Donald Trump because it's not just the moral thing to do to make sure people have access to healthcare. I don't want to kick 3 million people off of Medi-Cal. It's also the fiscally responsible thing to do because the moment I kick those the moment Donald Trump kicks those 3 million Californians off of their Medi-Cal, guess what? They don't stop using healthcare. If they need a doctor or a hospital, if their child is ailing and needs to go to the hospital, they're going to go use the hospital. The difficulty is now they go to the hospital without insurance, which means they won't be able to afford the bill, which means they usually use the emergency room, the most expensive place to get healthcare. And guess who pays? California taxpayers. I'm not going there. We're going to make sure people have access to care because that means those families will have the peace of mind of knowing that they will have the health care that they need. But more importantly, it's fiscally responsible because it means that those providers of the care, the doctors, the hospitals, the community health centers, if they know that the person walking through their door is coming with insurance, they know that they will get reimbursed for offering care. If those people walking through their doors did not have insurance, then those doctors, hospitals, community health centers, and other providers know that at some point they're going to have to start closing their doors because they can't do business for free. They need to pay their workers, they need to pay their overhead, And so they're going to have to start closing facilities because they otherwise can't meet their bills. So, excuse me. So we won't go there. We will make sure people continue to remain insured and have access to healthcare through Medi-Cal.
As governor, what action would you take to address the cited inhumane conditions and treatment of migrant children and adults currently locked up at for-profit detention centers in California?
We would take every action we can to move away from having any facilities that are privately owned detention facilities located in California. We only have so much authority on that because the federal government can force its will on us, but we will do everything we can to make sure if there's a facility in California, it meets California standards. That we can require of the federal government, that they meet our standards. The other thing is we will continue to resist the efforts of the federal government to lock up immigrant families who have not been committing crimes, who are not the subject of criminal actions. And we will do everything we can to make sure that we show the federal government that we're not participating in their ICE raids and their ICE actions.
California has the largest number of unhoused people in the nation. Many ambitious plans do not address the underlying challenges to keeping people housed. What is your plan for housing the unhoused and addressing some of those underlying issues?
Sunita, we will continue to work with our cities and counties to make sure that the services for the homeless are expanded to include shelter, healthcare services, job training, and we will do everything we can as a state to ensure that no more Californians join the ranks of the homeless. And so the billions of dollars that the state of California provides our cities and counties, we will demand accountability to make sure that when a program is stood up, that it's delivering results. It must have clear outcomes, documented outcomes of helping people leave the streets. And if they don't show clear outcomes, then I will demand that those programs be closed, and those programs that are successful in moving people to housing and health services, that we scale up those programs that work. So close the ones that don't work, scale up the ones that do work. But what I will focus on as governor, because this I will have direct jurisdiction over, is helping ensure that people do not become homeless, prevent them from ever becoming homeless, because it costs so much more money to pick someone off the street, help them stand up, get them cleaned up, get them the healthcare services they need, find them temporary shelter. That costs way more money than trying to help someone who's on the verge of losing their home keep it. And so whether it's because you had a medical emergency that you were not expecting that took away your savings or took you away from your work and you lost your job as a result, and now you're in debt, and now you're having to make the decision to pay your debt or pay your rent, and sooner or later you become homeless, or whether it's because you unfortunately lost your job unexpectedly and are having difficulty getting reemployed and now have been for several months without income, and therefore you're about to have to lose your rental premises. I'm going to do everything I can to work with those families, find out what it takes to keep them housed, rather than see them become homeless and have to spend so much more money to pull them off the streets. That's what I will try to do, and I will expand those housing, homeless prevention programs.
Thank you so much. We have 2 minutes left, so I'll leave it for you to close and tell us your last thoughts. And also, we hope that you keep up the dialogue with ethnic media and community media if you become governor, Javier.
Absolutely will. I wish I could do it in more than 2 languages, but I can at least tell you that I'll keep it up at least 2 languages. And what I will say to you is this. I am very fortunate to have this opportunity to be where I am right now. And I don't mean be right here, right now, leading the pack in this race for governor. I mean, be here right now as the son of immigrants, the son of a man who didn't get past the 6th grade, a mother who didn't come to this country till she was 18, who came to the state of California with $12 in their pocket. I know what it means to be the son of a working class home, in a working class home where a father was a union member. I understand what it means to be the first in a family to actually get to go to a university and get a college degree. So I understand what it means to be where I am right now. And I am going to make full use of every lever of government as governor to protect the families that were just like my parents, working really hard, never asking for a lot, just hoping that that would open the door to opportunity, if for not them, then for their kids. And we have to restore those days when people would come to California believing that if they worked hard, they could accomplish much more for their kids, own a home, send their kids to college or the military, retired, not in some other state like Arizona or Idaho, but here in California. That's my job, is to restore that faith, ignite that dream, and make people believe again. And you won't get that from someone who's never taken the tough votes, who's never had to run an agency, a government agency as large as the budget of the state of California, who's never had to declare a state of emergency. I have declared a state of emergency as a Secretary of Health and Human Services. I have balanced a budget larger than the budget of the state of California as Secretary at HHS. I have taken on the biggest menaces, suing Donald Trump over 120 times and winning over 80% of my cases. I am ready. I will not need training wheels when I become governor, when I step into that office. And I hope that I can then ignite that dream, because it is still something that too many families deserve to have and should know that they will have a governor who will fight for them. So thank you very much for letting me come. I look forward to having an opportunity to be before you again in the future.